and welcome to Moychay Tea Culture Club. Today we have special event with Robert Schinkel. He's the tea sommelier, and we prepare something really special and something nice for you. So I give a word to Robert to introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Robert, and as Anna said, I'm a tea sommelier, but I'm also a bartender, and actually I've been in love with tea for the past at least 15 years, although I've been drinking it all my life. It's a drink that I grew up with. It's a drink that my mom gave me since I was a very little kid, but only, let's say 15 years ago, I really discovered the true beauty of tea. As I said, I'm also a bartender, so I started out with using tea as an ingredient in my cocktails. I found that is an amazing ingredient because there's such a broad scale of teas to choose from that when you create a new drink, tea really gives you options to create something new. But after that, I just didn't want to make only cocktails. And I was very much intrigued about the interaction there is between tea and food. And tea is an amazing partner for food, and that's actually what I'm going to try to show you in the next few minutes.
Yes. So today we would like to discover a combination between tea and cheese, and well as tea and chocolate, because normally during our tea ceremonies, Gunfucha and Pincha, we don't use food because we think that it might disturb the tastes. But today we're going to discover those new combinations that Robert prepared for us. So let's go straight away to the first pairing.
Yeah. Well, let me first explain a little what tea can do for food. Tea. So all tea, whether it's the white tea, the green tea, the red teas, oolong teas, as long as it's genuine real tea made from the Camellia sinensis, it has the capacity to cut through fats, to cream, to oils. When something is very creamy and you take a sip of tea, you feel the fats disassemble on your palate, right? Then every tea has a character, right? So if you do character matching with the tea and the food, for instance, now we're drinking green tea. When you smell this tea and when you drink it, you get hints of grass, right? There's a lot of freshness. There's there can be a hint of nuts. If you find the right cheese, you can find exactly the same characteristics in a cheese as well. So I brought one cheese that's relatively young and one that's relatively old, and with both cheeses we're going to find a tea that has the same characteristics. So then you get a flavor match. Both teas, because they're made of milk, they have
that fattiness.
Exactly. And the tea is going to dissolve that fatness. Also, tea is warm, so it enhances the melting and the filming effect when you combine temperature and cheese. So there's a texture change happening in your mouth as well. So it's already 3 levels where the tea interacts with the cheese, and then that is actually what creates an experience. Because sometimes you just drink something because you're thirsty. Sometimes you drink something because you really like the drink. But when it comes to tea and food pairing, it's not just about drinking the tea, but it's the whole picture. So you're actually going to experience both in a different way, because the tea is going to change different, and the cheese is going to taste different. And together, it should be a 1 + 1 is 3 effect, synergy.
Great. So you said there are tastes which can be combined. There is also a change in the texture. And the third one was about
is the temperature.
Is the temperature.
So because there's a temperature difference between the food and the tea, in this case it's going to interact as well. Of course there's aroma as well, besides taste, which is like a combination of what you get on the palate and what you get in the nose. But just the aroma of something and the aroma of the tea, sometimes that's when I at home try to find new combinations. I always first take a sip of the tea, just first to neutralize my palate from everything else I've had that day. The second sip is to really have the tea all over my palate. And when I take the third sip of the tea, I start smelling the food. Then
So
next
this is
step.
what we're gonna do. This
Yeah,
is what
that's
we're gonna
exactly
do.
what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But the step afterwards, we're going to switch it. Then we're going to have a bit of the cheese in our mouth, and then first smell it. And because it's all connected, you can already sort of get it what it's going to be as soon as you combine it. And as soon as we have the cheese in our mouth, first we're going to like finish the bite and then take a sip and then see what happens, see what comes back.
Wow.
Sometimes it's sweetness, sometimes it's floral notes or grassy notes. Sometimes it's the sensation, the actual mouthfeel that takes over. It depends on which combination you use.
Wow, that's really sounds really exciting, because what we are trying also to bring over is a way of awareness, mindfulness when you're drinking tea, you know, to also to improve the palate, improve your taste buds. And this is actually what we're gonna do now, so I'm really, really excited. So, okay, so what we're gonna do now, we're gonna brew now some Kakigawa Japanese sencha, which is really fresh umami taste, and we're gonna combine it with the soft cheese, right? So
Yes.
I'm gonna make now a brew, and then you already can cut the cheese, right?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I should tell something about the cheese straight away. The first one we're going to try is a cheese from France, from the Bourgogne area, and it's called Brie Savarin, which is called a triple crème cheese. That means normally, because it looks a little like a brie, right? Or like a camembert. With brie, they actually take out cream. With this one, they add cream, so it's a very creamy cheese. It hasn't been aged for a very long time, a maximum 4 weeks. So it's a very young cheese, so you get young grassy notes. Cheese is made of milk, and milk is actually made by the cow or the goat or the sheep. It is the younger the cheese, you get those grassy notes. While if you take an older cheese, usually you get something more like hay, like old grass. Or dried grass. It's so in the way the flavor develops at when it comes to the age of the cheese is something to keep in mind when you match it with a tea. So that's why I suggested for this one that we start with a very young, very grassy, very fresh cheese tea. There you go. Now our hands are going to get a little dirty.
Yeah, we are ready.
It's a very, very young and soft cheese, but let's first start with really picking up the tea.
Yeah, so you really experience this grassiness, this dryness in your mouth that comes with that astringency, with that, with this freshness.
And yeah, and very, very particular for Japanese teas, you have like the umami coming through quite strong, which to me is very, very typical for Japanese teas.
Yeah.
All right, let's get our hands dirty. So we're gonna take another sip and smell the cheese.
So we're actually activating first our olfactory perception, and then both two different, like tea and the cheese.
Now we're going to do it the other way around. Have a bite of the cheese and smell the tea. Actually, when I do this for guests, I often serve the tea in wine glasses. No, it's not very traditional, but it really allows the nose to pick up even more
The notes,
of the tea. So now, finish the bite and take a sip and see what comes back.
And then drink, yeah? So indeed, what you said, that fattiness is gonna melt. So it's melting and becomes like really soft and gentle texture in the mouth, and together with romigheid from the cheese and this astringent taste of the tea is like it goes really well.
Yeah. Do you also find that when you drink the tea, it sort of gets a creamy edge as well? It's sort of the leftover of the fats of the cheese in your mouth.
Yeah, so this is what I mean, like this texture together, it becomes like softness.
Yeah, but then the tea almost becomes filming as well. And the funny thing is, if you take not one but two sips, like the second sip after the bite, it's cleansing. Now it's just the tea again.
Wow, it's like, I already feel that activation of all receptors inside, because like you are working with your nose, with the taste buds, and that the brain is kind of trying to pick up all the signals, and it's at the same time it's also very pleasurable. So it's like a lot of information going on. Yeah.
It's what I said earlier. It is now it becomes an of course tea on its own is an experience, but when you do tea and food pairing, it's not just the tea or just the food, but when they're matched in the right way, it truly becomes an experience,
and it's also
of all the senses.
Yeah, and it's also enhancing, like that perception of the tea and the cheese. Like if you just eat cheese or you just drink tea, it's different. But together they become like really nice experience.
But now you're going to do step 3.
Okay.
Now take a full bite of the cheese in your mouth, and make sure you have some hot tea that you can sip while you still have some cheese in your mouth, and allow the cheese to combine with the tea on the palate.
So all together, right? So I'm gonna brew some fresh green tea. So. Okay, so what we're gonna do now? We're gonna take a bite.
Yeah, just take a bite.
And then tea at the same time, right? And to let it melt inside. Melting away.
Sorry. It becomes one now. The tea enhances the freshness of the cheese, actually even more than without the tea itself, because it puts just a highlight on the grassy notes. And especially if you combine the two, then the melting part, the dissolving of the fats, that changes the structure. It really is.
It's really soft, like it's funny because to see like this harsh, this grassy tea, which people sometimes don't like this taste, but with this cheese, they become like a really nice, like
soft and mellow.
Like balanced,
Yeah.
And exactly like what you said, when you make just a sip of tea, it's it flushes everything away. It's kind of like cleansing.
The first sip you take is all about the combination and the pairing. If you do the second sip, then tea, because all tea also has this cleansing capacity, right? And so the second sip after the bite just resets your palate, and it's all tea again. That's the beauty of. There you can also see the strength of tea, because although this is actually quite light and subtle tea, it always has the strength to really reset your palate. And that's we're combining tea and cheese now, and which is for most people
strange, I would say, right? Yeah, but it's really nice, I should say.
in the Netherlands, you will find tea and cheese on almost every breakfast table, but they're never matched, or they're never because when I say tea and milk is for most people something that's much easier to comprehend, because especially in the Western tea tradition, lots of tea is served with milk. The step between milk and cheese is not that big, so it is really something to explore, and especially here in the Netherlands, people love tea, and cheese definitely. So and if we learn them how to combine their favorite cheese with the right tea, you get an amazing experience. The Swiss. They're famous for their cheese fondue, right? They've been drinking tea with that for decades, because there's another thing that is great about tea. It helps your digestion system.
Exactly, yeah.
And I love cheese, but if you have a lot of cheese, you almost feel it move through your body.
Exactly, yeah.
If you drink tea with the cheese, no problem.
Yeah,
it's because again,
fats,
it just doesn't only dissolve the fats on the palate. literally dissolves the fats all the way through. So there's a health aspect to having a tea with cheese as well.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna move to the next cheese, right?
Yeah.
So we are going to use a different tea.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an aged Moychay oolong. So first we get to know the tea, yeah. So just to take and to breathe with. I'm going to change the setup.
In the meantime, I'll tell something about the next cheese. It's one of my favorite cheeses. And well, it's actually one of the favorite cheeses from. It's again a French cheese from the French people as well. It's a comté, also made of cow's milk, but this time it comes from the Jura region. In the mountains, it's been aged for minimum 18 months. So the first one was 4 weeks. That was it.
Really young,
like 1 month.
Yeah.
And this one has been aged for 18 months. So this is a hard cheese. It develops crystals inside the cheese. It's got more character. Where in the first cheese, the dominant notes were grass or grassy. This one is sort of the grass turned into hay. It's dried grass now. And the age added more depth to the cheese, more complexity. You can get small, the small crystallization of salts inside is very nice. It is creamy in a different way.
Yeah, I see
the melting effect with this one is much stronger than the previous one, because the previous one was already melting. If you look at the cheese now, you see it starts to run. This one is still it's on room temperature, but it's still hard. It's an amazing cheese that sometimes resembles a little like the aromas of a stable. If you walk into a stable, I don't know if many of you walk into a stable on a daily basis. I don't think so.
There are many cows and they're like
or even when they're out, just you smell the barn.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can find that in this cheese as well. I'll let you explain the tea of the characteristics of the tea.
So it's Moychay oolong. So it's a really special aged oolong from Moychay mountains. So it's a tea which is processed. So many of you probably heard about oolong. So it's a rolled tea, and when you would see that during the process of brewing, it's gonna unroll. So a lot of aromatic oils comes. So it's really aromatic tea, and it's aged, so in roasted. So you will see the notes of roastedness. So that's why I think it's a good combination with that aged cheese as well. So this we're gonna try now. Just gonna warm it up, because this we use it normally with oolong. So first we're gonna put some tea inside. And then I was thinking to use those cups, and then we're gonna twist it around. So here we get a smell, and here we get a taste.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just need to warm it up a little bit.
Yeah, oolongs are amongst my favorite teas to discover. Yeah, and especially in the Netherlands, oolongs are not yet well known. I mean, if you go to China or Taiwan or mainly in Asia, people are more used to drinking oolongs. Here in the Netherlands, it hasn't. Well, first of all, it hasn't been commercialized yet, which is nice, because that means it's really a
market for it. But also like the beauty of the oolongs, the aroma, because we say also that those teas are nice for beginners, because it's very easy to get the aroma, for example, in comparison with the white tea, which are really subtle. You know, they're mostly for people who really experience in tea, but also who wants to discover more subtleness and taste and flavor. So white tea would be maybe the nice option to try. But oolongs is nice also for beginners, because when you have it, you're gonna smell it for sure, and this is what we're gonna now try to experience.
And also, like the oolong is sort of the in-between between green teas and red teas. So if you like red teas, there's definitely an oolong that you're gonna love. If you're a green tea drinker, plenty of oolongs to choose from. They have, like, usually, when compared to green tea, the oolongs have a bit more character, more strength,
especially
a bit more body.
Especially this one, the roasted one, yeah.
But when you compare it to red teas, they're a little milder, they're a little lighter in...
and I would say more aromatic also, because like during the roasting process, like you'll get a lot of essential oils in the leaves. And this is, so how are we gonna do now? Like, so we're gonna flip it.
Do the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah. First we're gonna try, or we're gonna like first get to know the tea?
Let's first just really experience the tea and get our whole palate into this tea.
Yeah.
So I take this one out?
Yes.
And this is what I smell, right?
Yes. So this is, and you already smell this roastedness, and because especially now, like it's so suitable for this time of the year because of that fire element in the tea. It's kind of that has this warming effect.
Yeah, the tea smells so inviting, and there's definitely a sweet note in this as well.
It's a bitter sweetness, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, but nice bitterness.
But it has a candied edge as well, like overripe fruit.
Yes. So this is what we call the subtle body of the tea, like that aroma. And then you have the real body of the tea, like the liquid self.
I'm sorry if I slurp when I.
That's normal, yes.
It is. If you slurp a little, you have the all the flavors in the tea are enhanced.
So actually we are pro slurping.
Yeah, you can taste the age, right? You can. It's got depth. It's got length. Very nice.
And this nice dryness, which is not overwhelming, you know, like because what I like also in HTs is that it's it has this like complectedness in the body, you know, like because the young can be like too overwhelming, but the more the tea, the wine age, you know, they get like the more complex body or connected body, you know, which is like that nice dryness, but which is not overwhelming.
Let's see what the cheese does for you. So, there you go.
Okay, so now how are we gonna do it? So first
don't eat the crust.
So
right.
shall I prepare some more tea?
Yeah, we'll definitely need some tea. We're gonna do it in the same way again. So we're going to make sure we get the...
So let's repeat the process. So first what we do is... okay.
Oh, that was not the right way to do it.
No problem, we're gonna do
it. Not a one-hand trick.
Okay, yeah. So first we're gonna smell, right?
Now we take a sip and smell the cheese. You already, with the tea in your mouth and the aroma of the cheese, you can already see that it's going to be a nice combination. This is, for when you try things at home, this is the easy way to find out if two things match. Just take a sip of one, smell the other. Now we're going to double check by now. Taking a bite of this and smell the cheese.
Other way around. And you know immediately.
This is...
if it's match or not.
It's
It's like yes or no. It's like not maybe, but it's like yes.
Yeah, yeah, and take a sip now, and then you feel that the character of the tea just connects perfectly with the character of the cheese.
What I'm thinking to do the next brew is because the tea is gonna open up itself more and more, so it's gonna be much more intense. So then I want to see how it goes in the second round. So what you see already that the tea inside is unrolling, so it becomes more aromatic now.
I will tell you that years ago, when I was still working in a restaurant, I was sort of annoyed by the fact that when we had guests over, that there was always one person by the time we would serve dessert that was not allowed to drink anymore, right? Because we usually served wines with the first few courses, but there was always someone at the table, the designated driver, who was not allowed to drink anymore. So but I still wanted to give those guests like a gastronomic experience. And the cheese board was one of the most popular things we had on the menu, but it was always served with a port wine. And someone told me, and he's actually he's more of a scientist than he knows about things about like flavor and aroma. But he said, based on the chemical analysis of cheese, it should work excellent with tea. Now, can you give me an example? I said, no, you're going to have to find out for yourself. But according to my science, my research, tea and cheese are great partners. So then I started to experiment a little, and this is if you start with tea and cheese, this is going to stick with you for the rest of your life, because there are so many teas and so many cheeses.
Wow.
It's like a never-ending search.
Okay, so let's repeat the way how you do it. Yeah,
like this.
Yeah, and then hop.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, we're gonna start with smelling, right? That roastedness.
You really get the roasted edge, right? Yeah.
It's coming now more and more. Oh,
and the age comes with a little dust, and I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's character, right? It's depth, it's strength, and again this sweet note, almost raisin-like.
And it's it stays, it doesn't go. So that's the sign of really good tea, that the aroma just stays inside and it doesn't vanish.
It's a stunning tea.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, we go with the sip again.
It even activates even more, the palate. Like when I smell the cheese and when I have the taste of the tea, there's something happening inside. I mean, like it feels like much more enhanced now. Okay.
And now just carefully take a bite. Chew on the cheese. Don't smell the tea, but see what now happens with the cheese while it's on a base of the tea.
It becomes softer.
Yeah. Flavors already start to combine a little because you have the tea palette when the cheese comes on top of that. And now take a sip of the tea.
Like what I feel is that it becomes more round,
Exactly.
like becomes like you have this harshness of the cheese, what you said, the crystals, that taste, but the tea make it like really round, and soften.
I mean, there's also a sweet note that is really lifted by the tea. There's a sweet note actually in the cheese that is lifted by the tea. So now it's even more intense.
The sweetness, yeah, and I can smell it now. Like,
it's got so much depth. It's got so much.
Like you go deeper and deeper inside, and it feels like never ending. Okay, let's now move to taste.
What's great about this tea that it's so full of flavor, yet so light. Right? It doesn't really leave your palate with like a heavy feeling. When you smell it and when you taste it, there's so much to taste. Like it's multi-layered. It's like a combination of different tones and notes. But at the same time, it's light.
It's like
it
elegant.
Has this. Which is really amazing about this tea.
Yeah, for me it's really elegant. Like lightness, combination of lightness and complexity of the tea.
Yeah. It's elegant, but it's got power as well, right? It's like.
Okay, so now we're gonna taste, right? So we get.
Amazing. With this infusion, really elevates the nutty character of the cheese. If you taste it now, after you had a sip of that one, the nut tones are much stronger.
And at the same time, I feel more that dryness of the cheese, but it goes so well with the tea. At the end, I think we're gonna make like, we're gonna post a combination of the tea, so that if you want to have this experience, so you know what kind of tea and what kind of cheese you can have.
Yeah, because I mean, obviously we're enjoying it very much. You're gonna have to do it with like with the video footage on how we enjoy it. But I particularly chose these two cheeses because they're actually widely available. If you go to a good cheese shop, you can get at least one of them, if not both. You know where to get the tea, and if you want to surprise your loved ones, your friends, anyone with something special at the end of a Christmas dinner, this is definitely a way to go. So.
Okay, so how are we gonna move now? We have our chocolate, right?
Yes. We have several chocolates now. So this is again, this is how you could combine sort of a dessert plate batter. So we move from cheeses to chocolates, but it doesn't end here, right? I've worked with chefs all over the world to serve teas next to their 5, 6 or 7 course dinners. When you work with a dinner plate, it's a bit more complicated because you have
different combinations.
Yeah, but I can always find a tea that just covers everything. But when you start with tea and food pairing, keep it simple. Don't for this there's no cooking. Well, there's cooking of the water, boiling of the water, but that's about it. But for your get some good cheeses.
Maybe it's also like chocolate is a good combination for vegan or for people who are vegetarian, you know, because not everyone eats maybe cheese or meat.
Exactly.
So there's also an option to combine or to have that culinary experience of exploring the flavors and the tastes. Okay, so now we're gonna move to the next tea, right? So
yeah.
This is gonna be now the ruby gaba or the red tea, like oolong or.
I think we are going to start with let's start with the lightest one.
So it's a red. Okay, so we first get to know the tea, so to smell the tea.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so let's continue for our next experience. We are going now to pair tea and chocolate.
Yes. And for that, I brought a couple of types of chocolate. The first one is what we know as a milk chocolate. So with more milk and less cocoa powder, so very, very simple. And this one is actually is pure chocolate, so 70% cocoa powder. So that last one is very earthy, very intense, while the first one is very, very light and creamy. I picked chocolate that is easy available, so you can try this at home as well. Obviously, you need to come over here and pick up some tea first.
Yeah. So what about the tea? We choose the tea which is really astringent. It's the green fresh tea which is rolled, so it's really thin. And important to know is that we brew it with 80 degrees because it's so subtle and gentle, so not to overbrew it. We brew it with colder water and take the infusion shorter, the steeping time is shorter.
It's a mistake many people make, that they brew tea, green tea, the same way they would brew red tea. The flavor is completely different and the aroma as well.
Yeah.
So it's such a big difference.
So just to get to know the tea. So we already warmed up the utensils.
Can I just interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Because sometimes I find beauty in almost all teas, but this one is exceptionally beautiful. If you just look at this tea, it's got the dark green and very light green colors. It just simply looks amazing.
And it's very soft and gentle in its textures. So you already feel this astringency in its flavor.
And we're going to try both the chocolates with this tea. But we start with a light one. First the light one, then the more intense one. Always do that when you're experimenting with tea and food pairing. First the light things, then the darker, stronger flavors. If you do the other way around, you're going to miss out on the delicacy of that this green tea brings to the combination. Very elegant.
It's soft.
Very soft.
And it's just the first brew.
There's a lingering sweetness in there.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, like, what's the best infusion is actually to do the pairing? Because I was just thinking maybe second or the third, you know, because the first is like you get to know
always.
the tea, you get kind of this introduction phase,
Yes.
and then they go to the second and third infusion, which is opening up the flavor and the taste.
Exactly. The best combination is usually when the tea is at its fullest. Usually. Might be the one maybe before or sometimes the one after, but like maybe the first one or two infusions are just to get to know the tea, right? To be acquainted to the tea, to get your palate all tea.
And I'm thinking it's also something maybe new for some people that you drink tea with infusions, because normally people just make like a big mug of tea and that's it, you know, and drinking in one go. While what we're trying to show you, this I'm just gonna make a new brew, is that while you're making the tea in infusions, is actually you're allowing to open up the beauty of the tea, because every time you make an infusion, that the tea is showing the new taste, a new angle of a new.
It's sort of the difference between Asian, whether it is Chinese tea culture or Japanese tea culture, versus Western tea culture, where you see that they usually do one brew with less tea and a longer brewing time, while especially in the Chinese tea tradition, you see the evolution of the brew throughout the several infusions.
Yes, and also about like when the tea is ready for. What's the highest point of opening up the tea? It can also be different from the type of the tea. For example, the green tea can have like 4 to 6 and even better quality of tea till 7. But then it's depending on the time of the infusion, how long you're gonna steep it, and also how much tea inside did you put. So it all, or for example, pu-erhs, which can last up to 10 or 12 infusions. So this like really interesting discovery to get to know the tea. Okay, so it's the second infusion.
Try this one first. So milk chocolate. There you go. You smell straight away. It's milk chocolate, right? It's
very sweet.
Very sweet.
Very sweet.
Exactly.
Yeah. And aroma. That creaminess.
Very creamy. Yeah. It's you sort of smell the milk.
Mildness at the same time. Yeah.
Not well. There's a little faint touch of earthiness, but the milk and the sugar sort of takes over. It's going to be very, very different from the other one we're going to try. Well, now our palate is all tea, but still, I would like to get just the first sip of this brew.
It's changed.
It's more intense, but there's this string of acidity now, right? It's almost citrus-like, but it's really acidity.
And slight touch of bitterness, if you like.
Slight touch of bitterness,
like that aftertaste.
Grassy.
Okay, so now then we have that taste of the tea in our mouth, and then we smell the chocolate, right? It's really a funny experience, you know, because like I still smell the tea, the aroma of the tea, and at the same time also chocolate, you know, so it's kind of combining those flavors in one go.
And that is sort of my trick to find out if two things combine. If it works like that, it's probably only get better actually when you do the palate thing. But to have one in the mouth and one in the nose, because it's still separated, right? You smell one and the other one is on your palate, and it just really explains if it's going to work or not.
And actually the body, you know, like I do believe in the body language, like because the body tells you yes, you know, or something. Like also sometimes even people are choosing tea, you know, and you're offering some tea to them, like they can make like or like yes, you know, so the body really kind of tells you like if it works for you or not. And everyone is different, so it might also something works for you well and for other not. So but this combination works perfect. Okay, so now we're gonna
other way around.
So now I taste.
Smell the tea. Take a sip. Very much the milk part in the chocolate that is being raised, and it just leaves you with. I think if you taste the tea now, all the bitterness is gone. It's completely. That's the sugar and the milk effect on the tea.
Because I'm trying also now to, you know, I still have that taste of chocolate, and I'm trying now to kind of to combine it in one perception with the tea. And I know I start to feel that like light bitterness in the tea, but together with the creaminess of the chocolate, it's again, you know, like for me it's about balancing the two opposites, and in one go they actually create something very nice and really balanced composition, you know, like even there, like what I said also on the teas, like the slight notes of bitterness, chocolate is really creamy, but together they're like one.
And I do have to say that sometimes people are a bit scared off by the term bitterness. While bitterness is a great thing, as a child, none of us like bitterness. That is because that is how we are programmed. Because when you are a child, you are not able yet to decide what is good for you and what is not. Most plants that are bitter in nature,
they're medicinal.
They're poisonous. So bitterness is sort of an alarm system for us that when it's bitter, spit it out because it's poisonous. That's what we learn as a kid. While you grow older, your palate changes and you start to appreciate bitterness. It's some of the most popular drinks in the world have bitterness. If you look at the most popular drinks in the world, let's say the number one is water. Water is by far the most popular, most drank beverage in the world, but followed by tea. Tea is the second most popular. The third one is coffee, and after coffee comes beer. Now, what do tea, coffee, and beer have in common? They all have a bitter finish. The nice thing is what bitterness does. The combination of bitterness and astringency. If you take a sip, and with many teas, if you take a sip, okay, you enjoy the aroma, the flavor, and then the effect of the astringency and the bitterness comes to your tongue. So it gets a little chewy on the sides of your tongue and a little dry on the back of your tongue, and it actually makes you want to take another sip. So it is sort of if the bitterness is at the right level, you just want to have another sip and another sip and another sip, because it is also the physiological effect of what happens
in your mouth.
The movement you make is I have another one.
And what also I wanted to add is that the bitterness, you know, like what you said exactly, like when people are coming and saying, oh, like it's bitter, something strange, is that bitterness has also different aspects, you know, like it's also different facets of the taste which can be discovered. So,
shall we
do the bitter
try
chocolate?
this time with the bitter chocolate?
Yeah.
Straight away you see the color difference. So this is with much less cocoa powder than this one. And so this is a much more intense chocolate. So we're going to try both chocolates with both teas, because we have a tea coming up after this one as well. And we're going to see what the difference in the tea is going to mean for the expression for the chocolate on the palate.
Okay, so tea is brewed.
This is the third brew, right? Or
yes,
the fourth? The third brew.
The third, yeah. And this means, like, already can see on the color of the infusion that it's almost fully, I would say, opened. And this probably also resembled in the smell slight, I would say, estrogens and umami as well, while it's Chinese tea, but that dryness, nice dryness and estrogens is there.
Yeah, it's just a more powerful tea now. The everything is actually a little more intense than in the previous one. Yeah, the acidity is still there as well. Only now it's more balanced with the rest of the flavors of the tea. The beginning was high in acidity, very very fresh.
And now the texture also, texture and the taste is more intense. Okay, so now we're gonna smell, right? We have this taste of the tea in the mouth, and we smell it.
It's very different, huh?
Yes, but I still feel it is sweetness, you know, like, I don't know if it's because of the tea of that.
Now, a part of the chocolate is sweetness, of course, because
I mean, it's different sweetness, but it's okay. So now I'm really curious about trying like that. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna taste, right?
Yeah.
Let's do it. I smell.
Don't know if you get the same, but for me, the tea activates a floral note in the chocolate.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's what you can expect from dark chocolate, that it's bitter. But here, that bitterness is like what I said. That's why I said it's also sweet, you know, because I think of that combination with that acidity. Yeah, it's also like that. It's not a harsh notes in the tea, but it's, you know, there is balanced harshness, and together with that dark chocolate, it's again, it really goes well. And you don't smell, you don't feel that bitterness of the chocolate anymore. You know, not that pronounced bitterness.
Exactly, and like the cocoa beans are like coffee beans, and in the end also like tea leaves. They have so many different aromas and taste hidden inside the bean. Like, there's a lot you can get out of a cocoa bean, and the tea will actually help to get specific elements out of so sometimes, because dark chocolate can be very floral, it can be sometimes almost tobacco-like. Basically anything else that grows in the same soil you can usually find back in this case the bean itself. Similar to tea, if the tea grows in a vicinity of eucalyptus trees, you'll get hints of eucalyptus in the tea. And because every product of nature is always a reflection of not just the plant, but also of everything that grows around the plant, right? This is nature. Nature doesn't take shortcuts. They so much to get out of a good tea. Some teas, when I drink them, I can almost imagine what it must look like where this tea grows, whether it's the elevation, right? Sometimes a tea is so elegant and so mild, you know it's grown high up in the mountains.
So we are going to continue, and what we're trying we're trying now that Duyun Mao Jiao Limao with the soft cheese, and just to get that nose that what Robert just was saying, that sweetness, and combine those tastes and textures. So make a...
If you take a sip of the tea now, so it's finger licking good. You feel how the tea raises sweetness, but also it although it's a creamy cheese, it's very light in expression. The freshness of both the cheese and the tea is accentuated by both.
I would never think that green tea and the soft cheese can be combined so well.
And there's also again the acidity you find in this tea is reflected in the cheese as well. It becomes a very fresh combination, which is kind of weird for a triple crème cheese. So the cheese should be it's very creamy. It's filming. It might not be very expressive in flavor, but it is in texture, right? And then you take a sip of the tea, and the tea is obviously very light, but it lightens the cheese as well, because the expression in total is not heavy at all.
No.
And you feel almost the cheese deconstruct on your tongue while you sip the tea. It's amazing.
I should say that it's such a beautiful experience, you know, like for the mouth, for the nose, and that complexity, you know, that you can experience, you know, that is enriching your perception. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and this is just the beginning. This is because this is very simple and easy stuff that everyone can do. This. You don't need to be a tea master or a chef to do tea and food pairing. You just have to get yourself some good tea, learn how to brew it properly, because that is one of the most important things when it comes to really enjoying your tea. I was born and raised here, and I've been talking about tea for over a decade to anyone who will listen, right? And sometimes I started out with my fellow bartenders to convince them to use tea as an ingredient, but also a lot of bar owners or restaurant owners. And what always annoyed me is tea is in most places where you go, it's a do-it-yourself package, which I find very annoying, because it's the only thing in the entire menu you have to do yourself. If I have to brew my own cup of tea at home, fine. That's the place where I do stuff myself. But if I go out for a drink or for a dinner, I shouldn't be brewing my own tea. And for some reason it's accepted. Everyone accepts that they have to literally make their own mess at the table to get the cup of tea that they want. But to brew a good cup of tea, first of all, you need good tea, which is already a rarity in most bars and restaurants in the Netherlands. Then second of all, you need the right water at the right temperature. There's no way for you to know unless you bring a thermometer with you everywhere you go to find out what the temperature of the water is. Then usually it's unfiltered water. Sometimes just straight from
the tap.
Yeah, from the tap. And the funny thing is the Dutch are very proud of their tap water because it's so amazing to drink, which is in some cases true, because there are parts of Netherlands where you have great tea, great water just to drink, but still for tea it's terrible. Because there's so many minerals and so many, how do you call it, droogrest or dry residue, that it takes away the aroma. And what annoys me most is when you take away the calcium, especially calcium, takes the light out of the tea. Good tea, properly brewed with the right water, if the light hits the tea, it dances around in your cup. As soon as it's made with tap water, the tea becomes dull. So for years I've been trying to convince especially bar and restaurant owners, to just pay a little more attention to tea. Tea should be something that is brought to you to the table, done, served, but you can just sit down and enjoy it. But yeah, for some reason, well, it starts to change now.
Yes, I see.
It starts to change now.
Yeah,
but in the first few years I did this, people were just looking at me, because for them tea is a glass, a bag, water.
That's it.
That's
yeah.
it. Variation in tea up to a few years was, if you ask, what kind of tea do you have? Oh, we have a strawberry tea and melon tea. We have lemon tea. We have mango tea. We have all sorts of flavored teas.
Yeah. And most also artificially flavored.
Yeah, and that is also something I want to share with you. And there are obviously exceptions, and these exceptions apply to, let's call them the classic flavored teas, like an Earl Grey or like a jasmine green tea, both flavored in a different way, but those are flavored teas. But good tea is rarely flavored, but it's because it has so much flavor on its own.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what quality tea they use in general for flavored teas. Not the best quality, that's what I can share with you. That doesn't mean that there are no good flavored teas, because there are, but I can definitely tell you there's no good flavored strawberry tea. That is, Earl Grey is like a classic combination, and jasmine as well. And jasmine is, if it's correctly done, the tea is dried with jasmine flower, so the essential oils of the flower go into the tea, and which is like an artisanal way of flavoring tea. But trust me that most flavored teas are flavored for a reason.
The next tea is that we're going to brew is completely fully natural. Actually, from our 150 types of tea that we have here in our club, we have only 1 or 2 flavored. Just for people kind of, if they want to make a transition between the natural tea and like this tea that they get used to, so we have something to offer. But the rest, more than the rest of the tea is fully natural. So this is the Ruby Gaba Oolong, Taiwanese Oolong. So
you know, the first thing that comes to mind is breakfast cereal. When I smell it, it's almost like Rice Krispies.
Because it's the most fermented oolong that we have. This Taiwanese, it's a Ruby Gaba. Yeah, and this, I don't know if you already start notice there is a hint of chocolate. So it's like for people who are coming and say that we cannot drink coffee, mostly we offer this kind of tea because it's so fermented, you know, so we're gonna brew, so it's gonna be intense tea. Yeah, I see it's also, there's like a trend, you know, that people become more and more aware about, before it was like what you eat, now what you drink.
Exactly. Yeah, today, and I'm very happy with that, is that people are much more aware, and I do have to say this is, especially the youngest generations are really pushing this. They want to know where something's from. And not only where it's from, but also how it's made. And especially for tea, those two things are good.
Essential, yeah.
Yeah, because
the quality of the soil and also the space where it grows, you know, what kind of pesticides, not pesticides is used, or like the region where it grows.
How they treat their workers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some I wouldn't necessarily call them great teas, but areas with great names, like that. But the working conditions are terrible. So I don't drink teas from that region, because by drinking those teas, you sort of support the way they're produced.
Yeah.
And tea, like coffee, like chocolate, is especially in the Western world, are former colonial products. And although the age of colonialism has passed us quite a few years ago, still you sometimes see that the conditions where people have to work on are poor. So it really matters where your tea comes from and how it's made.
Yeah, and the nice things about our company is that the founder, Sergei Shevlev, he's speaking Chinese, so he goes like to all small villages, you know, where people are producing tea by themselves, so it's small farmers, and we are actually buying the tea straight away, and he's testing the soil and testing at the place itself the tea, you know, so it's so we know always like that the taste and the smell and it coming from the first hand. So this, I think, it's a nice that we can always guarantee the quality of the tea that we are offering here, and you can already notice, right, that it's good quality.
Wow, the smell is just amazing.
Yeah, like what I would like to add about that exploration of the taste, you know, it's actually,
Yeah, you get
what to say, it's never ending, you know, like it's, and the sign of good quality that it's kind of got rolled, you know, like from one to another. So you can notice.
you smell chocolate. When you
Right?
smell this tea, you smell cocoa, not chocolate. It's
Cacao
the
beans,
raw,
yeah.
because it's got this really earthy edge, and
But sweetness.
yeah.
And
Yet it's elegant, huh?
Yeah.
It's still very elegant. Although this is like a longer fermented oolong, there's still so much subtle notes and openness and elegance in this tea. But yeah, because I've asked her for a few recommendations because the thing is, I know a bit about tea, and often people refer to me as a tea expert. Well, I know a lot about tea, but what I know is the more I know about tea, the less I know about tea, because there are so many teas, yeah, from across the world. But if you just look at Asia, the variety is immense, and it just makes you a little humble, because as soon as you know a little bit more about tea, you'll definitely know that you'll never know everything. So when you go into a tea shop like this, where people work that taste these teas every day, all the new teas that come in, they taste, ask them for a recommendation, tell them what you like in a tea, and they're gonna go through their database. Okay, that's that. Let them guide you, because there's no way that you're gonna learn about all teas in the world, but just talk to the people who drink it daily.
And I think the best way is to discover the tea is just to drink it, because
Yeah.
just to explore. And what I can say about my personal experience is that it's always changing. You think that you found that one, that perfect tea that you like most, but then it's coming a new palette, a new taste. And then look, this is already the second infusion, and it's much more intense, and it's going to be.
It has the appearance of a red tea, right? It's really. I can imagine why you sometimes recommend this for people who look for like a coffee palette kind of thing, because
the bitterness aspect is already
but
there.
also if you grind the coffee bean, so the raw coffee aroma is it's not the same, but it's similar. Plus, it does remind me a bit of like filter coffee, so not pressed, but just the edges of it, right? It's
yeah, like what in the nose is there, but the taste is lighter and softer. Okay, so we're gonna try it with the.
First, we do the light one.
Yes. So, tasting the tea and smelling, it becomes for me even much more sweeter. Like
There's a big contrast between the chocolate and the tea, because the tea is now quite intense, and all the chocolate really does is just mellow out the combination. Again, the milk in the chocolate is brought forward. It does really have a creamy mouthfeel if you do this.
You know what I notice is that when there are two opposites, there are. So for example, now what I feel is that the chocolate is much sweeter. But like when I taste the tea and I smell chocolate's like smells much more sweeter. But when I take chocolate inside and I smell the tea, you know, then the flipping other way around. So it's actually they're, you know, kind of pushing the edges of each other.
Yeah.
You know, like chocolate becomes more sweeter, and the tea becomes kind of these notes of cacao and coffee is coming even
Yeah,
more,
exactly.
right? It's kind of.
Tea always has the capacity like to push and to pull, and it pushes a few things back and just pulls something out that and puts the spotlight on something. And that is the beauty of tea and food pairing. Once you get the right combination, it really highlights something in the plate, and the trick is to highlight the right thing. So if there's a dish, whenever I do tea and food pairing with a full dish, there's always a star in the dish, and highlight the star.
But then it's also like a real area of knowledge, and experience to know that combinations which highlight the most exact notes, that you have. So it's
one of the reasons why I'm so into tea and food pairing is I love tea and I love food. So and the only way you can like build up your database of flavors that combine well is to try them, because this is not something you can do on paper.
Exactly.
Right, so you have to try as much as you can yourself, and because people often ask me, how do you come up with these combinations? Yeah, I've been making flavor combinations for the past 20 years, so in my head there's a database. Same thing as picking the right tea for something. I've tasted so many teas that sometimes I eat something, I should have had this or that tea, or that would work great. So it's all about experience, and there's also you can never do it wrong. Sometimes the combination might not be the best, but in that case you've learned what not to combine. So don't get discouraged if the first few times your combinations might not be as good as you hoped, but it helps you the next time to find the right combination.
Till now everything is perfect.
Yeah.
Like, tastes really great and combinations are really great, and I'm really appreciating this moment that you're here, because it's kind of opened up a new, I cannot say dimension, but it's like real nice area for exploration, like for deepening, for going deeper and deeper in your perception of the smell and the taste and developing it.
Yeah, for me, I love traditional tea, but my heart always goes out to exploring new things. For me, to bring tea to the 21st century, because tea is 5,000 years old, right? So at any moment in time, it's both traditional and new. But especially now, when we are in a time where more and more people not only drink more tea, but are more conscious about tea, how they drink it, why they drink it, where they drink it. I want to show the new sides of tea. Now, in the beginning, it was just cocktails, because that's my background, making cocktails. But I also found out that I can't do that for everyone. First of all, you have to be legal of drinking age. Then you have to drink, otherwise there's now I did make a lot of iced teas as well, like really nice iced teas, but when it comes to food, like tea, everywhere in the world is a traditional welcome, right? When you come in, you offer someone tea. It's it's a sign of hospitality. It's making the other person feel welcome. And the funny thing is, Middle East, Asia, but even in Europe, you come in and people offer you tea. It is sort of at the center of culture. With food, sort of the same thing. Sharing food is one of the most important social interactions we have. In many tables across the world, you'll find tea on a table with some food. And if you could just match those, you can get amazing results. And then it's sort of, I say that, it goes then beyond the traditional welcome, but the experience, because everyone depending on the food you serve next to the tea, you can put your culture in that piece of food as well. Because everyone, I've had tea in, well, over 60 countries.
Mm-hmm.
And now, because I worked a lot with the tea brand, I say that, I always get a very warm welcome,
Mm-hmm.
and they show me what tea looks like in their country. Not just the type of tea and the way they serve it or what they might add to it, but also what is around the tea. Mm-hmm. The local sweets, local cookies. Sometimes it's not sweet; it's a savory thing, mm-hmm. right? And sometimes, in some countries they just have like a natural pairing, something that always works. In some countries, like take the Japanese tea.
The matcha.
Mm-hmm. Whether it's matcha or sencha, mm-hmm. especially if you go to a Japanese restaurant, don't order wine. They have amazing teas, and especially Japanese teas. They go so well with their food. It really elevates the food. Mm-hmm. And for me, I just wanted to bring that part to the world. Well, try explaining to the French that they shouldn't have wine with their cheese, but they should have tea.
I mean, next to wine, maybe also next time to have tea. You know, yes, also about like the taste. You know, like that we now kind of starting exploring the taste, and for me, taste is a part of life. You know, so taste for life. Because nowadays also there's a lot of food where is like they add some seasoning, you know, which is artificial. So it's mm-hmm. also kind of changing the perception of the taste in the mouth. But with the natural products and complex products, it also kind of activates those palates and our brain, you know. So for me, it's also interesting area to explore and also to bring to the world.
And very important, tea sharpens your senses, all your senses. Tea makes you more alert. Mm-hmm. At the same time, you'll find tea gives you inner peace as well. It gives you focus. So especially when you're looking for flavor combinations, tea is like the great partner.
Especially also I now see that what you said in the beginning is that tea is a connector. It's like really, it also suits so much in the time of now, because people are disconnected. So tea is kind of like now we are connecting. Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm gonna now make the next brew, and then we're gonna make a really nice combination of dark chocolate and the ruby gaba oolong. There is the fourth brew of ruby gaba oolong, so what you see also in the color is much more intense.
So this is the fourth one, right?
Infusion, yeah. So I think it's fully open, because normally we brew it, you can brew it up to 10-12 times.
Like the deep flavor of the tea and the deep aroma of the chocolate, it's like perfect match.
And it's a really different perception of like when we tried it with green tea. Mm-hmm. Now it's I don't because when we tried with green tea, what I said also, it was like more sweetness came to the front. Now it's a bitterness, you know, like, but like when I say bitterness, it's a nice bitterness, you know, sweet bitterness.
It's not just bitterness. It's also malty, mm-hmm. Earthy, is very deep, right? It's intense, just like the
funny,
tea.
You know, it's funny like how the pairing can actually change the perception, you know, like that combination of the flavors.
Everything comes together in your brain, mm-hmm. right? And that's where sort of it's like a new painting that's being painted, mm-hmm. in the sense of you have the aromas and the taste of the tea. You have the same thing with the chocolate. If you combine, you create something new, a new experience, a new expression.
Mm-hmm. So now I have chocolate in my mouth and smelling.
Again, when you have that first sip of tea after the chocolate, it brings first thing it does, it brings a few things back from the chocolate. So you get these floral notes, a hint of sweetness. That's the pushing and pulling thing, where the tea pushes back something and just pulls out the sweetness and the floral notes of the chocolate. And the second sip after, straight away, palate is all tea again. Is all, because where in the first sip you constantly have like almost the leftover chocolate in your mouth that is being reactivated by the sip of the tea, and then some elements are brought forward. But the second sip of tea, then your palate is all clean again, and clean in the sense it's all tea again, right? Then you just taste the essence of the tea. And these are just like very easy, simple combinations. You can do this yourself at home.
It's so like I'm still like an awe of how it feels. You know that it's also I feel like relaxed, but at the same time I feel like it's really a new experience. You know that my brain is now a little bit busy with deciphering what's going on, but it's overwhelming a little bit for that combination of taste and discovering, but it's at the same time it's like what I said, it's so enriching experience.
Yes, and I can promise you that you have at least 15 to 20 more teas in the shop that will work with this chocolate, but they will work in a different way, because every tea has its own different. And that's a nice thing. If you in the beginning, especially for the cheese, because I made cheese boards, I would pick one tea that would go with 4 cheeses. So every time you would experience the same tea but in a different way, because it reacts differently with the cheese. But you can do it the other way around as well. Just pick, for instance, one cheese or one piece of chocolate, and try 3 or 4 different teas with it, and then see how the chocolate responds to all the different.
The cheese, yeah.
And another great thing is you can do this for ages, because there's literally almost no limit on the tea you can consume. It's super healthy for you, for sure. And it really teaches you how to experience flavor. Not just tea or not just chocolate, but in general. And keep in mind that when you taste a tea and you pick up a certain note, name it. Very important. Because if you don't name it, your brain forgets it. But for instance, I did a lot of spirit tastings. And if you are not experienced at tasting, you simply don't understand what the rest is tasting and why you're not tasting it. But as soon as, for instance, in this tea, if you smell it, you smell chocolate. Not one-on-one chocolate like this, but when you smell it, it reminds you of chocolate. If you have named it and tagged it, your brain won't forget it. And the next time you'll find a different tea that has a similar chocolate note, you recognize chocolate. So you start recognizing the chocolate note in every tea that has one. And that's how you build up like sort of a flavor library. So know what earthy smells like, know what malty smells like, know what fresh citrus. Sometimes it can be like more of a berry or fruit kind of note, and it's never one if it smells like, let's say, peach. It's never one-on-one peach, but it's peachy, right? And if you recognize like a certain flavor or aroma, you're also going to recognize it in its different stages. Like in the beginning, something can smell like young fruit. Then it starts smelling like ripe fruit. If it's a little older, it starts to smell like confiture, like jammed fruit. Older again, then it's going to be dried fruit.
Right, yeah.
And if you take it even further, then you go into wood and tones.
Override something, yeah.
So don't get discouraged if you don't get something straight away, because you need to train your senses and your brain. Okay, so this is earthy, this is chocolate, this is citrus. Same thing, what your palate experiences. Astringency is something that is hard to explain to people, right? And astringency is very important in tea. If you want to, maybe we can do a session on that in the future. Understanding astringency, because the way to understand astringency, you can do it with tea, but it's much more obvious with nuts. Unsalted, so nuts in its purest form, but if you eat like a walnut or just a peanut, you chew on it, all of a sudden you feel something on the sides of your tongue. That is astringency. And you find it in a very mild form in tea, but to me, understanding astringency in tea started by understanding it through nuts. Same thing with bitterness. To really understand bitterness, whether in tea or in anything else, try eating raw vegetables. Rocket salad, like rucola.
Yeah.
Or lof, witlof. And there are different types of vegetables that all have a different type of bitterness. And through that I learned to define the bitterness, the different types of bitterness in tea as well. Because pu-erh has a totally different bitterness than essentia. And a white tea has a completely different bitterness than a red tea. But by just feeding your taste and your aroma, your flavor library in your head, you start to understand that better and better.
Yes, and I already got an idea to explore, like what you said, different aspects of taste. For example, bitter taste, sour taste, like salty taste. You know, like we can think about it.
But for instance, the acidity of a lemon is entirely different from the acidity of a lime, and again different from a grapefruit, or there's a whole range of citrus fruits, and they're all sour, but all in a different way. And some of them, take a grapefruit. Grapefruit is sour, but it's also quite bitter, but it also has a floral aspect, a floral aspect that you do not find in, for instance, a lemon. You'll find the acidity, but it doesn't have the grapefruit touch to it. So as soon as you learn to define all those things, it becomes so much easier to comprehend what's in your cup. And sometimes you not learn it through tea, but like the bitterness, I learned to truly understand through vegetables. And astringency through peanuts, all sorts of peanuts, peanuts, walnuts, cashew nuts, they all have a different form of astringency. And the trick we did is, okay, you have to rank them from, you had 6 types of peanuts or nuts, rank them in order of astringency. And all of a sudden you have a scale. And that same scale you can then apply to tea. But the thing is, with nuts, astringency is so obvious that all of a sudden you get a sort of a scale. It's really nice. I
think that's a really great idea for the next episode of our discovery of the taste and the flavors and the smells. So for now, I'm really thank you, Robert, for coming and having the session for us. I hope that you enjoyed. And maybe also watching this, you can prepare already for the next time some cheese and chocolate and watch it again to have this experience. So see you, and thank you for watching us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's I've been in the shop quite a few times already, and I'm really happy that we have now in Amsterdam or in the Netherlands a tea shop that truly pays tribute to tea culture, and it's one of the few places where you can actually experience the Chinese way or the original way of drinking tea, which is it's amazing. It was really fun to do this with you, and for everyone watching, I wish you a healthy new year, and well, you can make sure you have a healthy new year by drinking lots of tea.